This presentation, titled Future Audits Using ISO 19011-2018 Guidelines for Auditing Management Systems, comes to us from Rick Litz. Rick is the founder and president of Litz Quality Technologies, Inc. He is also an exemplar Global Quality Management Systems Registered Lead Auditor, a Probitas Authentication AS9100 Aerospace Experienced Auditor, AEA, and an IAQG Qualified AS9100 Aviation, Space, and Defense Auditor. Rick is a U.S. expert representative for the U.S. tag to ISO PC 302. This tag was responsible for revising the ISO 19011-2011 guidelines for auditing management systems. After updating the standard, was released as ISO 19011-2018 Guidelines for Auditing Management Systems. He is also a senior member of ASQ, an ASQ Certified Quality Engineer, and a Certified Quality Auditor. And with that, take it away, Rick.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that introduction. And welcome to the Future Audits Using ISO 19011-2018 Guidelines for Auditing Management Systems presentation. The agenda will be that we'll look at the main differences between the 2011 and 2018 versions of 19011, auditing in a virtual world, process-based auditing, different types of audits, evaluating risk and opportunities for the audit program, applying risk and opportunities for the audit program, applying a risk-based approach to planning, types of audits, principles of auditing, managing the audit programs, how to conduct an audit, the competence and evaluation of auditors, which is very important, and applying audit methods. This standard provides guidance on the management of an audit program, the planning and conducting of management system audits, the competence of an auditor, and also the competence of an audit team. The differences between the 2011-2018 revisions are that risk-based approach to the principles of auditing has been added, expanded guidance on the managing and audit programs, including risks, expansion of guidance on conducting an audit, particularly audit planning, and expansion of generic competence requirements for auditors, some adjustment of terminology to reflect the process and not the object, removal of an annex containing competence requirements for auditing specific types of management systems, and expansion of Annex A to provide guidance on auditing new concepts such as the organizational context, leadership commitment, virtual audits, and supply chain. When we talk about a management system is a systems to establish policies and objectives and to establish processes to achieve those objectives. So a sector management system is nothing more than a management system used to direct control an organization with regard to the sector requirements. Sector requirements might be quality, they might be the environmental. Terms and definitions: an audit, a systematic independent documented process for obtaining audit evidence and evaluating it objectively to determine the extent to which audit criteria are fulfilled. And then the criteria is a set of requirements used as a reference, and objective evidence is compared to that. Audit evidence are records, statements of fact, or other information which are relevant to the criteria and is verifiable. You'll be hearing many statements of facts during an audit, and as an auditor, we need to find out if the statements of fact are indeed accurate and that they are verifiable. Audit findings can be the results of evaluation of the collected information, and then we evaluate that against the audit criteria. Things can be positive or things that need to be improvement, and it can lead to the identification of risks. Audit conclusion is the outcome of an audit. So once we do an audit, we need to determine what is the outcome. The client is the organization or person requesting an audit. The auditee is an organization or person participating in an audit, and the auditor is a person with the competence to conduct an audit. The audit program is a set of one or more audits planned for a specific time and directed towards a specific purpose. The audit plan is a description of the activities and arrangements for an audit. The scope is the boundary and the extent of the audit. And then we have a joint audit, which is carried out that is by a single auditee, a joint audit carried out at a single auditee by two or more auditing organizations. The competence demonstrated personal attributes and demonstrated ability to apply knowledge and skills. The different types of audits are first party, which is an internal audit. We have second party audit, where an external provider or other external interested parties conducts the audit. And then third party is certification and or accreditation by statutory, regulatory, or similar types of audits. ISO IEC 17021-1 is conformity assessments, and this is a standard that is used for auditing management systems for third-party certifications. This ISO 19011-2018 can provide useful additional guidance, so it's nice to know the requirements of both of these standards. A combined audit is an approach when two or more management systems of different disciplines are audited together. So this might be a quality management system and an environmental management system. We have integrated audits is where different systems are integrated into one system. So combining the environmental and the quality into one system. The audit methods can be on site. We're dealing with face-to-face communication. Could be virtual auditing using an online environment. And it can be remote audits where we're using technology to gather information and review the auditee when face-to-face methods are not possible or desired. We are seeing more and more virtual auditing and remote auditing in this particular time. Auditing virtual activities and locations using online environment, you follow the same process to verify objective evidence that you would if you were face-to-face. You want to ensure appropriate technology requirements, the remote access protocols, conducting technical checks to make sure everything is working, and having contingency plans if the problems come up, such as losing a wireless signal. Auditor competence, have to have the technical skills and the experience, and make sure that we ask permission to take screenshots. Program risks and opportunities are related to the planning, the resources, the selection of the audit team, communication, both internal and external methods, implementation of the program, control of documented information, monitoring, reviewing, improving the audit program, and availability and cooperation of the auditee and the availability of evidence. Some program opportunities might be to conduct multiple audits during a single visit. It helps minimize time and travel distances, and then it's matching the level of the auditor competence to achieve the audit objectives, and line audit dates with the auditee availability. That has to be all coordinated to make sure you have a successful audit. The standard is written in 7 clauses. Clause 1 is the scope, which is guidance on auditing management systems. Clause 2 is normative references. There are none in the standard. Clause 3, terms and definitions. While the standard has definitions and terms in 3.1 through 3.26, ISO has an online browsing platform, and the IEC Electropedia also has a website that has definitions. So it's good to know all 3 of these. Principles of auditing in Clause 4 deal with the integrity and foundation of professionalism, fair presentation, and also looks at evidence-based approach and risk-based approach to auditing that considers risks and opportunities. Clause 5 is managing an audit program. Here we're looking at establishing the audit program, roles and responsibilities of the individuals who manage programs, determining the resources needed for a program, selecting audit team members, managing audit program results, and monitoring the audit program, reviewing and improving the audit program, in addition to many other requirements that are shown here. Clause 6 deals with conducting an audit. So we're talking about initiating the audit, establishing contact with the auditee. These are typically not surprise audits, but we need to make sure that the auditees know that an audit will be conducted. And then assigning roles and responsibility of guides and observers if they are participating in the audit. And then there are steps of the audit that we'll look at in further detail. Clause 7 deals with competence and evaluation of the auditors. This is very important. We need to look at personal behavior of the auditors, their knowledge and skills, achieving auditor competence, conducting audit or auditor evaluations, and maintaining proving auditor competence. There's an Annex A in the back, which is informative, which provides additional guidance for auditors, such as applying audit methods, professional judgment, performing performance results, verifying information, and sampling. And then there's a bibliography that gives you more information about the life cycle, the audit of supply chain, and preparing work documents for the audits, as well as additional information and guidance for you. When we talk about a process is a set of activities you perform to transform inputs and outputs. Where there's an input, you do things, and there's an output, and there are controls and resources acting on the process. So with process-based auditing, we are auditing the process, looking at many different things all at one time. We have risk-based approach to the principles of auditing. Risk is the effect of uncertainty. The effect is a deviation from expected, and it can be positive or it can be negative. And then there's the uncertainty, which is the state, even partial, of deficiency of information related to understanding or knowledge of an event, its consequences, and its likelihood. And risk is often expressed in terms of a combination of consequences of an event and the associated likelihood of its occurrence. Principles of auditing of the audit: independence, impartiality, and objective. You cannot audit your own work. The evidence-based approach method for reaching reliable and reducible audit conclusions, and the audit evidence has to be verifiable. For the auditors, we have to have fair presentation, report truthfully and accurately, the audit findings, the audit conclusion, and developing the audit reports. We have to have some knowledge of statutory, regulatory, and other requirements, and contracts, agreements that might be in place when we're conducting the audit. Auditor characteristics, which are very important. The standard has many personal attributes for auditors, but some of the main ones for auditors are being observant. You need to be aware of physical surroundings and activities. You need to be open-minded, willing to consider alternative ideas, perceptive, aware of and be able to understand different situations, decisive, reaches timely conclusions based on reasoning analysis, self-reliant, acting and functioning independently while interacting with others, and then cooperative, effectively interacting with others, including your audit team members and the auditees. The audit team leader has some special requirements. They plan the audit, they organize and direct the audit team members, they provide direction and guidance for auditors and training, leads audit team in leading them to reach conclusions, and prepares and completes the audit report with input from other team members. Some knowledge and skills. Auditors need to know some audit principles, processes, and methods, the terminology, the management system standard that is being audited, the management tools and application, the processes and products, including service and sector terminology, technical characteristics of processes and products, and any specific sector requirements. In achieving auditor competence, typically we're talking about training, audit experience in auditing activities, continual development and maintaining of audit ability, and the evaluation of auditors. Regular participation in audits is the key to achieving auditor competence. Managing the program. Define responsibility for managing the program include establishing, implementing, monitoring the program, identifying necessary resources and ensure that they are provided, and ensuring competence of the audit team. It may include one or more audits, may have a variety of different objectives, and may also include combined or integrated audits. And then the planning, organizing the types and number of audits and the resources needed. This is a big task for the person. In managing the audit program, document information can include planning, scheduling of audits, competence, the records that are going to be kept, managing the performance and effectiveness, and reporting to the management of the organization. At appropriate intervals, the program should be assessed to make sure that the objectives have been met, identify opportunities for improvement, and some of the performance indicators could be the ability of the team to implement the audit plan, feedback from the audit clients, whether it be internal and external, from the auditees and also the auditors, and top management feedback. When you look at the standard, there are 6 steps for conducting an audit. Step 1, initiating the audit. Step 2, preparing audit activities. Step 3, conducting audit activities. Step 4, preparing, distributing the audit report. Step 5, completing the audit. And step 6, conducting the audit follow-up. So step 1, initiating the audit. You need to select the audit team, taking into account the competencies needed to achieve the objectives of the audit. If it's one auditor, all of the duties of conducting the audit fall to the audit team leader. You need to define the scope, the criteria, the objective of the audit, what you're trying to accomplish. The audit scope, the extent and boundaries of an audit are the physical locations, the activities and processes that are going to be audited, and the time period covered by the audit. The audit criteria are references against which conformity is determined. That can be policies, procedures, work instructions, can be any type of standard, can be a client or customer management system requirements, and it could be industry or business sector requirements. Establishing contact with the auditee is to provide information regarding timing and the audit team. It could be electronic or hard copy. You can request relevant documents to review prior to the audit. Needs to know something about whether PPE is required, the security requirements of the organization, whether this be virtual or on-site. And this would be the end of step 1. Step 2 is preparing audit activities. You need to become familiar with the system prior to the audit. You need to know something about the process requirements. So prior to conducting the audit includes reviewing the organizational requirements, the relevant standards, any manuals, procedures. You need to consider risks of the audit process. And we should always look at previous audit reports because that gives you an idea of what has happened in the past regarding the audit. That is the end of step 2. Step 3 is conducting audit activities. Prepare the audit plan. It's the team leader's responsibility to do this. It facilitates scheduling, coordination of the audit activities. The amount of detail reflects scope, complexity, and details may be different for first party, second party, and third party audits. And the plan should always be flexible because things may change. The audit plan covers the objectives, criteria, reference documents, scope, dates and places, times and duration, including auditor timeout meetings. It's important for the auditors to take a break sometime during the audit where you can review the status of the audit and the audit plan. Did something come up that needs to be addressed? And roles and responsibilities of the audit team members need to be defined. Assigning work to the audit team leader assigns responsibilities for the functions, the areas, the departments, the processes, what sites are being audited, and what activities will be undertaken. Preparing the work documents, process summaries, sometimes these might be called turtle diagrams. We need some sampling plans and forms for recording information. As auditors, we need to take lots of notes. And then work documents are retained until the audit completion. Continuing on with step 3, holding an opening meeting or an introduction or a kickoff, typically conducted by the audit team leader. Its purpose is to confirm the audit plan, to provide a short summary of how the audit will be done, and to provide opportunity for the auditee to ask questions. For internal or small organizations, it's communicating that an audit is being conducted, and typically you would be explaining the nature of the audit. Communication during audit, it is the audit team meeting. It's built this into the audit plan. Again, this is a timeout to exchange information, assess the audit progress, reassign work between audit team members as needed, and changes in the audit scope due to auditing activities. When we are conducting audits, we can typically look at it as part of a PDCA cycle or the plan, do, check, act cycle. So we are planning and we ask questions, we observe what's going on, we check the evidence, and then we act once we evaluate. We determine whether things are within the requirements, or if they are not, then what opportunities exist for improvement. And again, during this process, take notes. When you're asking questions during an audit, you want to follow the process using process summaries. Ask the auditees to walk you through their process, making sure process requirements are followed. You want to interview the right people during an audit. And you want to look for consistency in how more than one person does an activity. And typically we would be asking several auditees during the audit. Observing during the audit, are auditees doing what they're supposed to do? And remember the processes that you reviewed, the document information, procedures, work instructions, record requirements that applies. And again, take good notes. The evidence evaluates the process conformity. We need audit evidence. We need the facts. You examine documentation, look at samples, make sure that the auditee agrees with your evidence. That is important. If you find non-conformance, the auditor should be explaining to the auditee why it is a non-conformance and evaluate the evidence against the requirements. Sampling, an audit is a snapshot in time. You won't find all the good things that are happening, won't find all non-conformities. We have judgment-based random sampling, which relies on the competence and experience of the audit team. And we have statistical sampling, where sample selection is based on probability theory. You need to be confident in the evidence, and if a sample shows a nonconformity, select more samples. Everyone at some point in auditing experiences what is known as auditor's luck. Someone will say, how did you find that? Well, statistically, that's probably not the only one that exists. However, you want to take more samples to see if it is a systematic problem. Generating audit findings. Audit evidence is evaluated criteria, can indicate conformity or nonconformity. When you generate these findings, you always want to reference the requirement, state the audit evidence, the what, where, how many, the facts, describe the problem, and make sure it really is a nonconformance. Audit findings can be graded depending upon the context of the organization and its risks. Could be quantitative scoring systems such as 1 to 3, or qualitative, major, minor. An auditor should meet during the audit to discuss audit findings. Still in step 3, preparing audit conclusions. The audit team confers before the closing meeting, review the audit findings, agree on the audit conclusions, prepare recommendations if that is part of the objective, and discuss the audit follow-ups. So audit conclusions state the extent of conformity of the system with the audit criteria, the effectiveness of implementation and maintenance and improvement, and the capability and management review process to ensure continued suitability, adequacy, effectiveness, and improvement to the system. Conducting the closing meeting, which is a summary, can be formal. The audit team leader is typically responsible for this. It can include the auditee, the client, or other parties. You want to present the audit findings and conclusions, and then you want to discuss the time frame for issuing any corrective actions if there were some detected during the audit. For small organizations or internal audits, it can be less formal. Communicate the audit findings, conclusion prior to leaving the process. And we always want to give the positive first, and then any improved potentials last. And this is the end of step 3. Step 4 is preparing, distributing the audit report. And preparing the report, it's the audit team leader's responsibility. It becomes the official record of the audit. And it typically includes those things that were on the audit plan, such as objectives, the audit team leader and auditors, the audit conclusion, what clauses of the standard were covered. Additionally, it may include the audit plan, areas not covered, which are important. So if something came up during the audit in which a requirement wasn't covered, that should be reported in the report. Approving distributing audit report to relevant levels of management issued within agreed upon time. Any delays of communication should be with the client with explanations. Reports dated, reviewed, and approved, and distribute to agreed upon client relevant levels of management and respect to maintain confidentiality. And that is the end of step 4. Step 5 is completing the audit. It's completed when all activities in the audit plan are completed. Approved audit report is issued and filed document obtained during the audit. And then any collected documents should be retained or destroyed or returned to the client. This step may be the end of the audit, and this would be the end of step 5. Step 6, conducting the audit follow-up. If it's required, this is where you may be issuing requests for corrective action or any improvement activities. It's responsibility of the process owner to do the corrective action. There should be some agreed upon time frame, and then the auditee keeps client informed of the status. Then, as an auditor, we typically will go and verify the implementation effectiveness of the corrective action. That can be done as a subsequent audit, can be prior to the next audit, and typically it's done by the audit team members. This step may not be part of the audit if it ended at step 5, and then this is the end of step 6. In summary, ISO 19011:2018 is focused on conducting future audits. Auditors should obtain a copy of it and become familiar with the guidelines. Auditors are very important in helping an organization improve processes. Auditors should always practice continual improvement for their competencies. Virtual auditing is being used and will continue to grow into the future. References are stated: ISO 9001:2018, ISO 17021-1, ISO 9000:2015, and the ISO.org website. So thank you for attending. I hope you learned at least one thing that will help you prepare for and conduct effective audits in the future.
And thank you, Rick Letts, for your expert insight on ISO 19011:2018. And that concludes this presentation.